So let's continue our meeting. We're coming out of executive session. Our roll was already called. Beverly is unable to join us tonight. She had other plans but couldn't quite make this work. She tried and gives her apologies. Next thing on our agenda is awards and recognitions.
Do you need help?
And then, yeah,
Okay.
nope, and then, Okay, so good evening, everyone. I want to begin tonight by recognizing one of our educators who recently offered her knowledge, time, and service in order to help students across Ohio succeed. Anna Kiss. Our Heights Career Tech Pharmacy Technician instructor recently sat on the Secondary Career Transfer Alignment Initiative panel. This was one of more than 105 panels put together by the Ohio Department of Education to assist with thorough course and program reviews. Anna, we thank you for using your institutional knowledge and subject matter expertise to help improve post-secondary education opportunities, not only for your own students, but of all of Ohio students. Please come to the center and we will receive your certificate and we will take a photo. Let's give her a hand, please.
Yes, all right.
Okay, and then finally, in tonight's recognition, we will honor the 2018 Master Teachers. The district's Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources and Operations, Dr. Paul Lombardo, is here to present these teachers and say a few words about them and their accomplishments. Paul, if you would come up.
All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Dixon, and good evening. Tonight we have 5 accomplished professionals receiving recognition for master teaching. The master teacher designation means that an educator demonstrates excellence inside and outside of the classroom through consistent leadership and focused collaboration. The master teacher also has a wealth of knowledge and understanding of his or her subject matter, is sensitive to diverse student needs, and sets the bar high for all students in an environment that allows them to achieve. Both the initial portfolio submission and the renewal process are rigorous. There's quite a bit of work that goes into this. This designation is truly an honor, and the district is very proud of the accomplishments of these educators. A couple of them could not be with us tonight, so I will mention them. Courtney White, an English teacher at Heights High School. Ms. White also submitted a successful portfolio. And also Christine Smerdell, Roxborough Middle School math teacher. She could not be here. But we do have 3 here tonight we'd like to honor. Please come up and get your certificate. First, we have Danielle Copeland, who is a social studies teacher at Roxborough Middle School. Ms. Copeland successfully submitted her initial portfolio this past year. Come on up. All right, elementary intervention specialist, Catherine Craig. And Tiffany Jordan Shaw, Roxborough Middle School math teacher, and she is this year's Master Teacher Committee Chair. After we take a picture, she'd like to say a couple words as well, so congratulations. So come on up, Tiffany.
Okay. The Master Teacher Committee would just like to say thank you to all of our honorees, and you guys put in a lot of hard work, and I know because I had to do the same thing. So continue doing what you're doing, because it's awesome. And hopefully it will get more people to apply for Master Teacher Committee. And I also wanted to say thank you, Dr. Dixon and the board, for the awesome recognition at our convocation. It was really cute. We really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So that's it for our recognitions, but what I would like to have, so remember last year, we have our high school students that are coming each of our board meetings to kind of inform us of what's happening in the high schools. So we're happy today to have Caroline back with us today, and she's going to give us an update of all the great things that are happening at Heights High. Welcome back. It's all yours.
Hello, thank you. I'm Caroline Imka. I'm a junior this year at Cleveland Heights High School, and I'm here to report on to some of the activities and events going on at the high school this year. It's homecoming season, so the parade will be Friday the 12th, October 12th. Starts at 5 at Fairfax, and is going to be just moving north on Lee Road. So be sure to come out and check it out. Lots of clubs and groups from the school will be in the parade. It's a really cool. We're trying a new thing this year. It's called Rock the Block. It's like a watch party for the parade. It'll be held from 5 to 6:30 in the green area on Lee Road. So bring your kids by for games, and there's going to be like a magician and jugglers and stuff. We're going to try it this year. It's going to be really cool. And the game is the following Friday versus Warrensville at 7, and tickets are sold at the door. So be sure to come out and support our Tigers. Also, Mary Poppins, it's musical season. Mary Poppins is the show coming up this year. It's a really cool show. We're actually going to be able to fly Mary this year. She gets to fly.
And Bert, you have to fly
Yes,
Bert.
I know, maybe, we'll see. November 1st through 4th are the shows. The first 3 are at 7, and there's a matinee on the 4th. It starts at 4 p.m. Tickets are sold at clevelandheightsquares.com, and be sure to come out and support the music program. I'm in it. It's kind of a big deal. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Caroline. Wow, good, great. Thank you. All right.
Thank you. So, statements from the audience. Nobody has signed up for any. I was going to make a statement from the board real quick regarding Dr. Dixon's departure. We had very nice comments and some tears in our work session when we talked about this publicly. Yes, we're going to miss you, but we have to move on. And we're going to start that process on October 9th. We're having a work session where we're inviting the Ohio School Board Association to come in and give us a little bit of board training and give us some ideas on how to proceed. Jody and I have been talking to Dr. Dixon. She'll be part of the whole process since we are so fortunate you're going to be here through the end of the school year. And we're going to take it from there. So moving on to our consent agenda. This has all been shared with us prior. Do I have a motion?
I motion that we accept the consent agenda as provided to us.
I second.
Do we have any comments, thoughts?
I had a couple of comments. One, Mary Poppins flying by Foy. If you work in theater, you know how amazing it is to have Flying by Foy come in to rig our kids. They're going to get the same level of theater magic that professional Broadway shows use. So when I was saying, are we flying Bert? Yeah, Bert's going to tap dance around the senior march. So it's like, and for high school students to be able to work with professionals and produce their own work at this level is extraordinary. It doesn't happen elsewhere. So I'm very excited about that.
heightschoirs.com. Get your tickets.
Buy your tickets, yeah.
our changes in salary, those are in the consent agenda, yes?
Yes.
I would just like to point out, I counted over 30 members of our teaching staff who have taken classes and grown professionally and are being recognized for doing so tonight. And that is just an incredibly impressive number when you consider what percent that is of our staff. So I say a hearty bravo and thank you to all of those members of our staff who continue to grow professionally and seek out more education themselves to bring to our kids. So that's it.
Any other comments?
Are ed services part of the consent
are.
agenda?
Yep.
I just have to say that I am very impressed with the field trips that were
Yeah.
coming up. And I think it's amazing that, first of all, that kids are going to Washington DC, that our kids are going to Pittsburgh, that our kids are going to Belize, and our kids are going to Guatemala. I think that's amazing, and I think that's something that we would want in part of our measurements that matter
Yep.
when we put that together.
Just in one board meeting, they're all going.
Good.
If there's no other comments, would you call the roll, please?
Ms. Serini,
Yes.
Ms. Lewis,
Yes.
Mr. Posh.
Yes.
Mr. Hines.
Yes.
Time for the superintendent's report.
Okay, so I have a couple of things. First, this past Saturday, I had the opportunity, along with Allison Bird, we were both, the Cleveland State University Center of Education and Leadership chose 10, this is their 10th year anniversary, and they chose 10 leaders to recognize and receive their Educators Inspired to Lead Award. So I, along with Allison Bird and 8 others in Cuyahoga County, received that award. Allison was in the first class of that organization, so it was an honor to share in that award with her and 8 others. The work that Cleveland State University has done collaboratively in the county and with the district. So I would like to publicly thank Dr. Deborah Moran and the dean of the college, and just to say thank you for the partnership and the work that we've been able to do. Also, I'm excited to announce the Tri-Height CTE Consortium has just expanded. Now we're going to have 18 seats in the culinary program starting next fall. So we're really excited about that partnership, more information to come, but our students in the Tri-Heights Consortium, that's Warrensville, Shaker, Maple, and Bedford, and us, will now have 18 seats in the culinary program. Last week, at our PTA council, and we have our PTA president here, it was just, we had a first meeting. She came with her agenda. She's focusing on enhancing membership, school safety, and providing additional before and after school opportunities for students as her platform. Very impressed with the meeting, and she's coming with her goals, and we're excited to work in partnership with PTA Council this year. AVI Food Service was present. It was amazing. It was only our wonderful families in Cleveland Heights. One of the parents said to AVI, we believe that our high school students should have the salad bar as part of their free meals, their lunch. And they said yes. So starting this past Monday, yesterday actually, so our students at the high school now has a salad bar option as part of their a free lunch option. So thank you for inviting them, Vanessa. And I think the parents are really excited to see that partnerships, and all you have to do is ask, and sometimes when you ask, you do get those things. But a very, very good meeting, and really happy about to see the direction that the PTA Council is continuing to go in. So it's positive. We also received great news from our partnership with Invest in Children with our University of Pre-K. So the UPK program has now given us some additional dollars. So they increased the amount of money that they're going to give the district for our part-time and our full-time students. So we've had that as part of our goals to expand our pre-K opportunities for our students, and now we have some additional dollars to do that. So we're excited about that, and we thank Dr. Rebecca Dorman and the UPK and the county staff for recognizing the work that we've done in our pre-Ks and to give us additional money to expand this opportunity to even more kids in our district. We also have STEM Goals Red for Girls. So last year, the American Heart Association, we had I'm blessed to serve on the board of Cuyahoga County chapter, and we were able to do a event for girls, STEM Goes Red for Girls, and we were able to choose 100 girls from throughout the county to expose them to STEM careers. Well, this year, we're going to have that event again, and we have 16 girls. But of course, only as Cleveland Heights, we want to expand that to 18, so I've already got an email that they want 2 other girls to go. So our staff at the middle school has already chosen 18 girls who are going to accompany me on that date. I think it's November 2nd is that date. It was awesome. It's for 7th, 8th, and 9th grade girls, and really exposing them to STEM careers. They were so excited when they went last year, and just to see all the girls from across the county. And I was excited to be able to bring greetings to all those girls as a superintendent. So I think they see that women can do anything we set our minds to do it. We just have to expose them to the different opportunities, and to see the teachers already stepping up and say, you know what, not only are we going to do 16, we're going to take 18, so we need 2 more spots. And they've already sent everything to Felicia to get approved, and we're going to take the students with us. And then the last thing I would like to say, I know we talked about, if you look at our strategic plan, goal 1, student outcomes, expectations, proficiency, and mastery. And we've been talking so much when we started the strategic plan journey, is we wanted to make sure that our students, that we were graduating our students at least 90% by the year 2020. And so we've been trugging along. I think in 2014, we were about 80% or 81, I think it was between 80 and 81, I believe. And correct me if I'm wrong, Allison, I know I got the number yesterday from Sandy. But it's refreshing to know that now we're at our 4-year rate, we're at 86.7, and our 5-year rate, we're at 90%. We reached 90% last year for our 5-year rate. So we are only 3.3% from our 90% 4-year rate of getting to 90% by 2020 for our graduation. And that shows the commitment and the work of the team, the high school staff. When we get students into the district, we want them to graduate. And we set that goal, and it just feels so good to be able to say we've already met it last year for the 5-year rate. But the goal is to get our students, when they enter that 4-year cohort, we want to get them all graduate when they enter 9th grade. And to see that we're so close to that mark because of the work that we've been doing, I was proud to receive that data yesterday. Now, we know there's some new graduation requirements that are coming forth. And, and we know across the state that they are anticipating this decline across the state because of the new measurements. But our staff, it's only they do so well, they've already put some things in place so that we are capturing those students in the class of 19 and the class of 20. So Felicia and Allison and all of them in Ed Service is already working with the teams to make sure that we have those safety nets in place. They've already put together some information to meet with the parents, the guidance counselors, to meet with the parents, and to make sure that they are aware that the requirements have changed, but that we have some things in place so that we don't see a huge decline because of those new requirements. So just want to say publicly thank you to the commitment of the high school team and to the educational services team for working with all of our students and our parents to to see this graduation rate increase over what it was in 2014 and know that we can get to 100%. We said 90%. We know we can get to 100%. And we are looking forward to celebrating in 2020 when we see that all our students, we reached that 90% goal. That's what I'm looking forward to. So that's it for my report.
We have,
The third and final reading of policies.
Right.
And that is Dr. Lombardo, if you'd come up with that.
Good evening again. This is the third and final reading, so the board will take action on our last three policies that we've worked on. 2271 College Credit Plus, 2370 Educational Options, and 2464 Gifted Education and Identification.
we're going to need a motion because it's the third reading on this. Do we have a motion?
I motion that we accept these policies.
We have a second.
I second.
So these have been presented to us on two other occasions.
I just had some questions about enrollment numbers. I know it has nothing to do with the policy, really. But I'd like to know how many students we have enrolled in College Credit Plus, and how frequent is the need for the remediation that's in that policy?
Okay, I don't know that I don't have that information now, but we'll be more than happy
We'll pull it
to.
up at some point.
Absolutely, we can get
Thank you,
that.
because I think that's
Actually,
something
I-
that people would like to know.
I can give you that information.
Yeah.
I asked Paul that recently, and I have his response that last year we had about 114 students enrolled in CCP. And so at least that gives you a little bit of a benchmark.
Right.
That-
Okay.
Felicia has it.
Oh, well,
Okay.
of course
Oh, do
she
you?
does.
Yeah. She gave it to me prior, but I was going to send in a report. I didn't bring it over, but thank you, Felicia.
So last year there's CCP in two places. They are actually being served at the high school by our teachers who teach CCP courses as well as out of the district. Last year, Heights High School CCP course student participation was 75 students, and there were 3 different courses, 1 through Tri-C and 2 through Kenyon. College Composition, Intro to American Studies and Contemporary Black History. Out of the district CCP student participation was 53 students. And they participated in the universities that were named above, also with the addition of Kent State, Cleveland State, Notre Dame, John Carroll, Lakeland College, and Case Western Reserve, giving us a total of 128 students for last year. Currently, in this school year, same courses for students at the high school, but we have increased to 70 students, and out of the district is 32. So we have total participation currently right now at 102. And the CCP college coordinator, they stay in contact with our CCP person here at the high school. They conference with students about failing grades, and they do a student check-in biweekly.
Okay. Do we have a significant problem with children's grades not being sufficient to maintain CCP? I would assume that kids who undertake that rigor are prepared for it. But
We've only had 2 students last year who could not maintain their grades, and currently we have 1 student, and that is because they have withdrawn.
Okay,
from
so
our
it's
district.
not a huge problem is
No.
what I'm hearing. Okay,
No, because of the biweekly check-in.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
It's also, I think, worth noting that when it comes to CCP, when you compare the numbers of students participating in CCP through the colleges versus the AP program that we offer in-house with something like 19 advanced placement courses, I really think that that is a celebration of the work that our AP program is doing at Heights High.
Malia, you had a laundry list of questions that you shared with us this afternoon as well, but Dr. Dixon said that
get it back.
You're gonna respond to that
Right.
the
Yeah.
Friday. I
Yeah.
mean, nothing
Today, but, yeah.
significant, but
No.
just a
Right.
bunch of little.
There's a lot of curiosity, because as I read these things, it occurs to me, I wonder, how many kids are affected?
Yeah, yeah, no,
Makes
good
sense.
question. Yeah.
Any other thoughts? Can you call the roll for the vote?
Mr. Posh.
Yes.
Mr. Heiss.
Yes.
Ms. Serini.
Yes.
Ms. Lewis.
Yes.
So in the superintendent's report, there's an item number 2, and Scott shared with me when we sat down that that was being combined into the consent agenda, which is what we mentioned it was going to be, so just as a matter of formality. We have the treasurer's report.
And you'll notice there's nothing in the treasurer's report tonight. We're saving it all for the 16th. So the 16th work session
You
will be, yes. The 16th work session is all finance. And so just to note that it will be at 7:30 rather than 7 o'clock, since the board members are attending the open houses. And we'll try to have an interesting and entertaining presentation. And at that time, we'll be bringing the 5-year forecast for your approval there at that meeting.
Yeah.
Moving on to the president's report, just 2 things I sort of found out hanging around in the community. One, something I was not aware of, but the Wiley 6th graders are, every week there's like a check-in apparently with the kids.
Okay.
And the parents are thrilled. They sort of really like what's going on. I also was at an event on Sunday, and the feedback I've gotten on how parents are feeling about Wiley this year is really very positive. I hear this time and time again.
As do I.
So there's been a lot of work that was done. I mean, the year is still fresh.
Yeah.
Okay? A lot could happen, a lot can go on, but, so
good. That's a
far,
good start.
very pleased to see the actions that were taken last year and turned into reality this year. Just, things are looking good. In the Friday report, you shared with us about the computer science program this coming year, or this year, and the goal of making that a true AP class next year. That is just super news.
And that will bring our total AP offerings to 20 different classes, is that correct?
All right.
Okay, that's a huge number.
Yeah.
Yes, it's
I
terrific.
would
Yeah.
be curious to know if we offer more than anybody else, but
We
I
do.
know it's pretty, no reason to
Yeah.
go through that,
Yeah.
but
And I'm going to share some information in your Friday packet. Allison did a presentation on our AP data, so I'll share that presentation with you on Friday. Just some good information about how our students have been doing on their classes and their test scores.
I think when we have our next test score meeting, we've all been talking about the measurements that matter to
Yeah.
us. We talk about out-of-state field trips, we talk about involvement in music and, science, and, that's clearly going to be something that we're going to want to
Yes.
talk
Dig
about
into,
and
yep.
dig in and make sure our community sees that number on a regular basis, so when they evaluate us, they're not looking at a crazy test score that is, I know Dan's going to want to talk about it later, but a crazy test score as opposed to what's really happening here in this district. There's 3 major items in my report that we need to take some action on. Well, not voting action, but we need to discuss. The first 2 we can lump together, and these are 2 policy changes. This is the second reading. I made some changes based on feedback I've received from really everybody at this table, including Dr. Dixon. Essentially, we have 9140.1, which is a Citizens Task Force Committee policy. Just to refresh everybody's memory, the existing policy in dealing with lay committees really didn't align with what's going on and what our needs are. We've been doing these task forces for a while now. This just legitimizes the work that's been done in those task force. And this is very much more of a superintendent staff set of committees. The second one, the Citizens Ongoing Committee, this is more of an ongoing, this would really what a lay finance committee that we've had okay, so we've had this lay finance committee in the past. It would fall underneath that. our goal is to capture any feedback tonight. Molly, I'm not sure you've actually volunteered, but you sort of volunteered that you would look at the
I
wording of
have,
this. You had
yes,
some
that's basically what I
concerns.
did. I stepped in it with
I
both
would-
feet.
I would be grateful if you want to,
But I just need access to
I will,
the file.
yeah, I will make sure that that's up
Thank you.
in Google. So the goal is to discuss tonight, vote at our next meeting, which would be the 9th?
16, if you want to do it the same night of the work session.
I think we
good.
wanted to
Would
do
be
it
the
at a work
16th.
session.
Yep,
And then we were going to follow up like in the next day or the day. I mean, basically, we'd like to staff a finance committee, and we'd like to staff essentially an advocacy committee.
Yep.
Begin that process with applications out to the community mid-month.
Yes,
So that as soon as we can get this okayed,
going to roll out with our first
we're going to
committees.
roll out.
Where will the facilities committee land in that spectrum? Will that be a task force or an ongoing committee?
I think that is us, and I think we could take that up as the next agenda item.
Very good.
The policy for the ongoing committee is written as such, so if we chose to have a lay facilities committee or a lay communications committee, or we actually do have a policy committee,
Correct.
those committees would fall underneath that,
Yeah.
underneath that policy, that governance.
Good.
So, I mean, it's intentionally that we have 3 readings of this. It's been presented. You could ask questions in the meantime, you could ask questions now. Without putting anybody on the spot, any concerns, thoughts?
I think the structure is sound, and the differentiation between the two kinds of committee is important. I just want to see the language be a bit clearer, that's all.
Fine. Okay, so I'll open up those on Google,
Great.
and we'll make sure that's an agenda item then for our meeting on the 16th.
Okay.
So, the folks at moving on to the next item, the folks at Van Aken Hawkins have been working with staff, and they brought Jody and I in to work on the laundry list of things that we discussed in our last retreat. Is there a way that we can get that presentation up on the screen?
I think you can email it to that.
It's here, yeah.
Should be in board docs.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
in board
it's
docs.
in
Just
board
pull it
docs.
up.
Yeah,
It is.
Yeah.
it is in board docs.
Yeah. Okay, so, and there's a presentation that's been shared with the board, it's up on board docs, so it's public. So, what this is just a couple slides that are for our discussion. We had a retreat, we talked about things like, well, what are we gonna do with Wiley? What are we gonna do with preschool? What are we gonna do with the elementary schools?
That's it.
Oh, that's perfect, great. There were some thoughts staff had. They went through this with Jody and I in our regular meetings, and no decisions have been made. So this is a point where we need to discuss how we as a board want to proceed with Phase 2 of our facilities. So part of what you're looking at is a presentation that Van Aken Hawkins has done that will help guide them through an engagement to help us figure this out. So I'm just going to go through a couple slides just to kind of lay out sort of the whys, sort of the purpose, some short list of things that we can discuss. If we like these, we can, or we can add to the list, strike things off the list. But essentially the why is Phase 1 is starting to close. It will be done. We're pretty certain it's going to be done on budget.
On time.
all indications are it's going to be done on budget thus
Yeah.
far, at the end of the school year. We know our OFSC funding is not turning into a reality. 5 years ago, when we started this project, they said funding would be available for our elementary schools project. Well, it's not. They've given us another 5-year estimate, so we're concerned about that. I mean, we were supposed to use, for example, the Wiley space as transition space as we worked on the elementary schools. Well, without the state matching money, now we can't just all of a sudden start working on the elementary schools. And now we have an empty Wiley we have to be concerned about. So that's a concern. We don't want any empty buildings. What are we going to do with it? And also, a number of years has passed since we analyzed our facilities. So really, time to do a gut check to see where we're at. And I think, based on our retreat and other conversations we've had with the board, this is pretty much, I think, what we believe in. So, there needs to be some kind of project, a board project, that lays out what are we going to do. So what we've done is we've tried to put up some draft goals. And want to make sure everybody understands that, so this is sort of a draft, for our discussion. We can add to it, we can change it. It's my opinion that student achievement and early learning needs to be top on our priority. No matter what we do, we need to be looking at this from a student achievement perspective and an early learning perspective. Ideally, we'd want some kind of plan that would not involve another bond issue. What can we afford with our existing resources? No unused buildings. I think that's a term Van Akens Auckland has come up with, but I think it really means is that we want to make sure the buildings we have are well utilized, and if they're empty, we need to make sure that they're well used for whatever purpose that we come up with. And the buildings remain community assets. Not going to put a parking lot.
Unless that is the best use of the space.
Right.
Thankfully, I don't think we're in that position.
No.
So there's a couple things that staff came back with Van Akens Auckland's help, in response to the things that we talked about in our retreat. And, so this is sort of like, okay, well, this is, we gave staff a project. One of them was looking at preschool, one of them was to look at Wiley Bus Depot. So the other issue is, now, if we were going to embark on a process, what would that include? I mean, it's pretty daunting when we look at all our facilities. I feel like we need to have some kind of limit on what we're looking at, make it a manageable list, but make sure it's a meaningful and important list. And I don't know if all this captures all that. So this is sort of work that was done with Van Akens Auckland and staff, with some input from Jody and myself. But now it's time for all of us to really sort of do a gut check, look at this, figure out what the next steps are. So obviously we want to maintain school presences in Cleveland Heights and in University Heights. We have a bus depot problem. It's essentially in rented space. It was supposed to be moved back here. Someone has to look at that. It was presented to us that we might want to look into an innovation academy that we've seen some other school districts implement. This is sort of like a magnet school. Apparently our staff is pretty jazzed up about that. I want to learn a lot more about it. The thought of consolidating a couple of our elementary schools. The existing plan talked about consolidating 2 of them. We've looked at centralizing preschool, possibly a pre-K building. Pre-K 8 building. And this would likely involve revisiting some school boundaries. Now, like to go on, but is this a good time to sort of take your temperature and get a sense of what your thoughts are on some of this?
I have a couple of thoughts. I think we can just, I would like for us just to take one off and say, we will maintain school presence in Cleveland Heights and University Heights. I think that that's something we can just sort of take. I would like to see us take that off of staff's radar. I think we just need to commit to that once and for all. That is, this district lives in two cities and a sliver of another one. I think we have a commitment to maintain that forever.
Yeah, I agree with Dan. It's not really a topic of discussion. The discussion would be,
What,
where, what,
Yes.
grade, configure, whatever, that stuff comes later on down the road. But whether there will be a building in UH, I don't think is
I don't want that in
a
play.
question, yeah.
That's an absolute. To me.
Why don't we add that as a goal? I mean, we have a couple of goals listed above.
That'd be great.
Set that as a goal.
Um,
I don't think there was ever any sense of anybody from staff or Van Aken Hawkins that made any suggestion that
right.
there would not be.
And I didn't mean to
Right.
imply that there
Right.
was. I just think that we can say it out loud that
And
it's
take it
not.
off of it. It's not for discussion.
So let's,
Right,
yes.
Right.
And I just have to say, I appreciate my colleagues feeling that way and supporting that. I mean, I think we all know I'm kind of the lone person here from University Heights.
We got your
And
back, Jody.
I really appreciate that, because I would say that that was not a factor 8 years ago, that was not considered. So thank you.
Yeah, so Jody, we're one school district,
Yes, we are.
Yeah.
And yes, absolutely. It also occurs to me that numbers 3, 4, 5, and 6 necessitate 7.
Yeah.
If we do 3, 4, 5, or 6, 7 is necessitated. So that's really a given in above. Now, there may be value in keeping 7 as a separate line, just to sort of keep it front of mind. But it's important for us to recognize that as we talk about our kids in elementary schools, I think almost every one of them, and it will involve some kids going to different elementary schools. And that is a wonderful opportunity, but it also brings some nerves. And so we need to do that well. And that requires a great deal of community input. And one of the things that I really wrote down is, holy cats, we've got a lot of community members to meet and talk to and learn from throughout this process, which I think we all think is an extremely exciting opportunity. But there's an awful lot of work to be done between here and there. And I know that I'm speaking for all of us when I say that, we are just absolutely committed to that process and excited about doing this with our community.
So, one reason why you see number 7 on that list is because there's been processes in the past that were sort of done by experts. Then the experts came back. Yeah, the experts did pull some of the members of the community, but members of the community were surprised by some of the things that came out of that work. And the whole reason why we're having this discussion right now is to avoid that kind of surprise. So, yeah, there will likely, you're absolutely right, if we do any 3, 4, 5, or 6, there will likely be some boundaries being relooked at. It can't be done without that. This is halfway through a presentation that lays out some process, but that process does have to include more more of us as board members and more of the community as these decisions get flushed out. So,
I'd like to point out one thing that possibly could be added to this list is that we may be revisiting grade configurations in our buildings. Or would we possibly be? I think we could. I mean, if we're looking at 3, 4, 5, 6.
Right.
That could result in some grade configuration changes.
I think that we've got, with the 2 middle schools coming online that are going to be so exciting. And if we are looking at a pre-K 8 option or whatever Heights Innovation Academy could be, then, really it's reshuffling the deck significantly. Maybe not entirely, but significantly. And I think that this is really one of those times when we would need to learn what are the best practices, what would any change offer those students. And Innovation Academy sounds like a great name. I don't know what that means. I know that there's something going on in Willoughby Eastlake that has a lot of people excited. So once we, and I mean the large we, not the small we, once we sort of start to put ideas together, to me what that means is we need to go visit places that are doing the things that we're interested in doing, and perhaps then we take a second look at who's where and what they're doing there.
so maybe I'm not sure we need to separate number 7 into another item that also includes Jody's comment about grade level configurations, but it probably should get mentioned into this, on this page.
It's a utilization and
Yeah.
and efficiency.
Because as Jody said, any one of these things could lead to changes in grade banding and changes in the map.
As a guy who's lived through the changes in grade banding this year, having moved to Chardon High School, I will tell you there have been a lot of growing pains, but real opportunities also. So
I would also like to add something to this list, and that is, if we were to do something with a smaller elementary school footprint, and we had some savings out of that, are we able to get air conditioning in the elementary schools?
In the remaining elementary schools.
Right.
Yeah.
Elementary schools. So not a full-fledged renovation that we're seeing. I need to be careful. The middle schools are not a full-fledged renovation.
but you
they're
wouldn't know
pretty
that to walk
darn
through
good
it
when
today.
when you walk in the windows, everything looks bare, but
It's exciting.
it's exciting. It's be cool to see. But I'd be interested in seeing that on the list. So, okay, I'm going to work through some more process things, and we can revisit this in a minute. So, Van Aken's Auckland, that has had these preliminary conversations with us in the district, they've done these kinds of engagements, most recently with Shaker, which is how they came to us. The principal who's involved in this is a Cleveland Heights resident, so it's somewhat local. So I'm not sure they are the moderator of a process, but certainly one of the leads in the process to help us analyze information, because a lot of this is, there's going to be some smaller committee that's going to have to dig through data and look at maps and try to figure some things out. So the initial feeling was there would essentially be 2 board members on a committee, select members of Dr. Dixon's cabinet, and some building administrators. And that would form an executive committee. They would meet on a regular basis, and they would update us on a regular basis, the balance of the board. That's sort of the general feeling. There was some timeframes, just on the next calendar. The general feeling is we'd like to try to get something that can be digested by the community in a 6-month period of time. But because of the holiday season and vacations, we'd probably want to stretch that to a 7-month window of time. Make all meetings public. So the above committee would meet publicly, noticed. We can determine, I doubt it would be televised, but, maybe we can find a way to record it or have some minutes. But I think it's really important that, I think once the committee gets formed, the committee can decide how they're going to deal with it. I think, though, that the committee needs to make a presentation to us as, 5 board members monthly. And I would assume they would be meeting probably on a monthly basis. With community meetings wicked into the meantime. So they basically proposed in October, starting this month, going through May, monthly public executive committee meetings with the 2 board members, updates regularly, and then community engagement. Filtered through that process.
It's a pretty intense schedule.
Well, Wiley is closing at the end of the
We have a
school year.
deadline.
And there's things that are going on at Wiley that are going to go away, like some of the trailers. But if we need to work with that or keep that or think about a bus depot, I think we really, I don't want to rush. I'm speaking for myself. I don't think we need to, I don't want to rush through this, but I want to make sure that we're moving at a pace. So at least we have some better ideas of what's going on with Wiley. And I think we have to make sure that I've seen this school district in the past start walking down a process and not alter the course when things started swaying. I think this committee needs to be nimble enough to realize, we didn't think about something, we need to add something to this list. Or this doesn't make sense, we're going to take it off. Or, oh my God, this is going to affect so many parents, they're not ready for this decision, we need to wait on this. Or we need to get more input because a lot of people don't know what's going on and it's really going to affect their kids, we need to figure this out. So I'm dependent on this committee to.
Project needs to work for the community, not the community for the project.
And frankly, if community members come with another idea or an alteration to one of these ideas that's really smart, we ought to listen to it.
Yes.
Because I know that has not been done in the past, and I would like to think that we can be open-minded enough that if somebody comes up with a really fantastic idea, that we're willing to say, hey, that's great, we didn't think of it, but now let's think of it.
So, in terms of the timeline, recommendations to the board this coming May, what would you see those, so would you be envisioning a recommendation that would be, and I'm making this up, the Sunshine Academy opens at the old site of Wiley, and the Sunshine Academy is going to be a K-8 International Baccalaureate innovation hub. That you want that much detail? Are we looking for that much detail? Or is the recommendation going to be that we consider a pre-K-8 as another option in the Heights schools? Similarly, are we coming in May, is the expectation that it will be that we are going to condense and shutter 2 elementary school buildings? And these are the 2 elementary school buildings, and this is the date that those will be shuttered, or what are you looking for in that recommendations, the timeline?
I think a little bit of all of that, what you stated. But I think it's important that the community knows that we're not going to have a vacant building next door and we have no idea what we're going to do. We know that the current plan states that 2 elementary schools are slated to close at some time. So just given all of that, what are our next steps? Let's revisit the plan as we should. We know that, again, as we stated earlier, our needs have changed. And for example, we were not thinking 4 years ago or 5 years ago about centralized pre-K, because we had that in the district at one point, right? So now we're revisiting that and saying, you know what? Maybe we should revisit that. Maybe that is an option. But I think we are exploring those options now. It gives us also time to look at potential funding for some of these new configurations and ideas, and then come to the community after we've had some conversations and say, now we have a plan. This is what we think we want to do. May come to the board with the plan, and then we have a timeline for implementation as well. So, will we have something ready to roll for Wiley next year? No. But we will know that in May, we'll have an idea, because June and July, we're going to be moving. So we're going to be moving into our new space. And then August and September, we're probably going to be doing some groundwork, because the modular units will be moved. So we still have some work to do. But the long-term plan is we're not going to allow a building to lie dormant for 3, 4, 5 years with no plan and no conversation. And we're not starting a conversation after the building is empty. So I think it's a little bit of both, and prioritizing, what do we do first? Is it next door? Is it the centralized pre-K, if we believe that that's what's next? Is it but all of those we could be able to prioritize because we have a plan that we will present to the board, that we've had the conversations with the community and with the staff. Because it is an aggressive timeline. I mean, we're talking 6 months. I mean, it's an aggressive timeline.
I think it's too aggressive, I'll be honest with you. Okay. I think it's too aggressive. I think that the individual issues that we are talking about, I mean, I think that it's a 6-month conversation about consolidating elementary schools. I think it's a 6-month conversation about, a pre-K-8 and perhaps united with that, what does that pre-K-8 look like? Is it an innovation hub? Is it a magnet school? I think that combining all of those conversations into one committee and a 6-7 month timeline is, I'm worried about whether or not that can be pulled off with the quality that's necessary and the community involvement that's necessary. And I'm wondering if we don't want to break that into multiple committees or thin it down. I think it's a lot of work, as I said, that must be done well, and I'm a little ambivalent about whether or not it can all be done at once by the same group.
So I think the committee needs to be fast and nimble. When we as a body meet once a month, I don't think that's very nimble and very fast.
Agreed.
Having representation on a committee that figures these things out, I think helps that. To what end, I don't know. It's sort of been my opinion that for the 18-19 school year, we sort of figure them out, but not to a point where they could be implemented. So for example, you talked about closing elementary schools. We don't even know what the financial impact is. If we were with the numbers, the student achievement impact, and we don't know the financial impact yet.
Right.
And that could be done without picking a particular building.
Sure.
Okay, so it's like, okay, so from a big picture perspective, if we pulled one building out, what does that do to, if we just sort of
operating expenses.
Yeah, did this on an
busing.
average. What does it do to employee counts? What does it do with the base of students that we have? I think it's that kind of work that actually happens with the recommendation of, okay, at the end of the school year, it's likely that we should close 2 buildings, or 1 building, or 3, or leave them untouched. I think that's where this engagement stops. Especially when it comes to closing a school, you need a good amount of time
Yes,
to get a community comfortable with a particular building.
yes.
How that building gets chosen, so it doesn't get chosen where it gets the sense where you're pitting school against school. I mean, one of the things that bugged me about processes in the past is we took things away from the community, where they felt like things were taken away. We'll talk about Coventry for a minute, okay? Community really felt like that was ripped out from underneath them.
It was.
Okay? But what this school district gained from a financial perspective, almost immeasurable. Our levy amounts have been down because of it. We have recovered. Well, not all of us, but many people have recovered from that pain. We can't walk down that kind of path. I mean, at the time,
Right.
great intentions, people felt like they were doing the right thing. What's interesting about if you kind of go back to the looking at sort of the big picture, if we were able to do this today, I'm on slide, Scott, I'm on slide.
Discussion topics.
Yeah, discussion topics and focus. So this is, and then if you also look at the goals, but we can't do that. But, part of the goal is doing this without a bond issue, okay? If we were able to update, maybe air conditioning, I don't know, this is 2 unknowns, but we need to figure this out. If we were able to, create some kind of, magnet school, innovation academy, if we were able to consolidate preschool, if we were able to give something to our community in exchange for taking a building offline or 2 buildings offline, and savings, so we don't have to go back to the ballot boxes many
Right.
times. I mean, what does that mean? I mean, now we've got a package that the community can better understand. So it's like, okay, well, yeah, I'm losing my community school that, my kids went to, that I cried in. I'm going to cry a lot when they close it, but I get the big picture. I see the vision. I think what we'd want to do for this first 7 months is trying to get an idea of what that vision is. It's so murky. There's so many permutations about maps and how it could look at. And I think it's sort of, I would like to
Yeah.
see us at the end of this school year have at least a recommendation that makes fiscally sense and something we can give to the community that answers the question, what are we doing with phase 2? But not down to the detail of what building.
Yeah, and I think I'd like to know, well, what does the community want of the measurements that matter? We keep coming back.
Right.
What do our neighbors want offered in elementary school?
Right, right.
What options do they want available? Do they want a STEM elementary school?
Right.
Are they, now that they're more experienced with International Baccalaureate, is that something that is very exciting to
And that's
them?
part of the process too. So when we think about, is centralized preschool is what we want.
Correct.
Because if you recall, a couple of years ago, I was saying that we were going to put a preschool in every building and ran into a hurdle with trying to get a preschool in Fairfax and Boulevard because of the building.
Yes.
And we couldn't get those authorized. We had to put modular units if we wanted to. To your point, I think it is, exploring different options with the community, but doing it in a way that they are informing us, and we're having these open and public meetings. And I appreciate you saying maybe the timeline is too aggressive, and maybe we prioritize some of the things. I think the one piece, the sense of urgency for us and the board was we do not want an empty building. That's a priority, and no one wants that. And are there plans? What do we do? And we really wanted to do that with the community and not us doing it to the community, as you stated. So, I mean, I appreciate the board wanting to say, you know what, it's time to revisit this plan. We know we're not going to get some of those fundings back as we thought.
The unicorn's not coming to Cleveland Heights.
So we know we're not going to get those funds, but it could give us the opportunity to offer something different for our community. And what does that look like? Is that the focus on early elementary? You know, to say, hey, here's an opportunity to do something really innovative with our pre-K. Because those are the learners you want to make sure that they're coming to us. We see an increase in our numbers in our pre-K. You know, and wow, is that something? Or do we approach it with something innovative for our, you know, our secondary kids? But again, we're having a conversation. I love the idea that our staff, we've been going to site visits, but I love that idea. It's taking, you know, community members and board members to kind of see
Absolutely.
what's out there. Because I think when you go and you see something different and you say, oh my gosh, that will work in our community. And we're having those conversations. And then we're looking at funding too, because a lot of these innovative ideas, you know, these learning opportunity, there is funding out there that we could, to get, you know, to support some of these ideas too. So I think it's all of that. But I think it's a start with this executive committee, an executive committee working with VAA to kind of getting those data points. We have this timeline, you know, maybe with community meetings and getting input. And if there's a different way that we can approach that by getting some input, we're welcome to talk about what that,
Yes.
of what that looks like.
I have a couple thoughts. One is that field trips are always a good idea because it might also give us insight into things which are not a good option for our community, which then takes some options off the table.
Yes.
Because sometimes we just need to weed away, there's
Yeah.
too many different approaches to take. And I would also caution us against chasing dollars just to chase the dollars.
Oh, right,
We need to know that this is what we want to implement.
Right.
And then go after the dollars, not just write grants because that money's available. You know what I mean?
Agreed.
Yes.
Agreed.
And I think that one of the things that we need to make sure we're doing is working with the cities, with our city governments for whatever buildings end up being impacted.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want,
From the beginning.
yes, from the beginning, and I think that one of the reasons that our neighbors and communities are so anxious anytime we talk about a school building is we haven't done a good job on that. You know, we've had buildings sitting empty in neighborhoods that have dragged down values. And I think if we can come up with a solution that gives the community something else, back to the, you know, making it a community asset and somehow working with our fellow elected officials, I think that we can get over some of the pain that we have experienced as a community in the past when that process hasn't been as cohesive as it needed to be.
Agreed.
I also wonder if on the ideas that are exploring, I mean, I know that sometimes you can have citizens that go, you know, they volunteer, they want to help, they want to go research some of this stuff, and maybe there's a way to have subcommittees that go explore or look at things and bring back input to the larger committee as well. I mean, I know that we've gone down that path sometimes too, and sometimes that is a way to make sure that you're engaging your community and hearing from them, but also they're part of the work.
Subcommittees.
Yeah, subcommittees.
So I think maybe one of the things that needs to happen once this group meets for the first time is really do a gut check on the time frame and the process. Just sort of recommit to the fact that the process, at least that there's a process that could evolve. And this is the time frame. And these are sort of what the expectations are.
Agreed. Okay.
I'd also like to know, and I hope that whoever watches our meeting and the people in the audience will immediately give us some feedback of
Yeah.
what they've heard in this presentation that they've liked or what brings them concern.
I'll tell you what I like so far is what Jim was saying about that, you know, sometimes it's addition through subtraction. So if we're gonna close Sunshine Elementary School and the kids are gonna go to, Oak Elementary School, well, what is there more at Oak Elementary School that those kids are gonna be brought to? That, I think, is where we need to focus our attention. How can we make it better, a better education, instead of just only a more efficient education?
Yeah. Excitement. Yeah.
And I think we need to look at the equity piece as well. I mean, one of the,
Yes.
one of the issues that I know families are experiencing is because, our middle schools are at opposite ends of the district, if you're not in those two neighborhoods and your child can't walk, it's really difficult to be in after-school activities. If you don't have a way to get home, you don't have a parent with a flexible job or a way to get home, you can't get there. So it does limit opportunities for children unfairly, and we got to make sure that we're not doing that.
So this is what I would like.
Okay.
I'd like us to agree that this is a direction that we can start moving in. I'd like us to pick 2 of us to be part of this. And I'd like to start this month on this. Thoughts on those?
I certainly agree that we should start moving forward on this, without a doubt.
I
think we
do
have
as
to.
well. I agree as well. As long as we're nimble enough to borrow your word, Jim, nimble enough to be more nimble with our time frame if that becomes necessary.
So we all agree, got 5. So I need 2 more members.
Beverly's not.
Okay, so this
She
is.
just got volunteered.
You got voluntold.
So
You've been
this is our challenge as a board. We have this initiative, which is pretty darn big. We have an initiative where we need to find a replacement superintendent, which is, that process is going to start kicking off next week.
Next week.
That's going to be pretty big. We have our negotiated agreements with our unions that are coming due this year.
Another big project.
Yes, we've already been to some board training on that. We know what we're in for. We know we need to partner with our unions. We have a fiscal presentation by the end of this month, so we'll have a much better idea of where we stand with the amount of money we have in our coffers. So those are 3 biggies, and I could add the measurements that matter, the measurements that really matter to us as a school district, who we are, what makes us important, what do
Advocacy
we
is
value.
an ongoing
God,
important
you had the
project.
5th one, which we forget about
I knew
too many times.
So 2 committees.
So I will take myself off the list of doing this. I mean, this is the stuff I absolutely love to do, but I think there's so many other things. I'm going to take myself off this. So there's these other things that we're working on.
I will offer. And just because I'm offering doesn't mean you need to accept it.
Thank you, Dan.
I will offer to serve, really only because working to our sweet spots, I'm the educator, and a lot of this is going to be edu-talk.
I think that's important. I think it's important to have that.
So you're interested.
I'm willing.
Yeah, I hope you 2 are interested because it's interested stuff.
I'm interested.
I'm also interested, yes.
Yeah, I'm interested because I was on the previous facilities committee, and I think that it is good to have some continuity or somebody who has history on how that process took place and what what was good in it and what some of the pitfalls were in it.
Can we have 3?
Well, the meetings are going to be noticed. I think it sort of puts the other, they are going to be noticed.
Yeah.
So, but this
But we have to
has
spread
got to
ourselves.
happen in an open room where people see what's going on, the discussions.
Sure.
We don't need another Plan C, and people, if you remember the old facilities
Right. Oh,
process,
yeah.
and people
Yes.
wonder where that came from.
Yep.
That can't that can't occur.
Yeah, the only
Um,
problem with 3 is we can't have a decision with 3 people, so I don't think
Let's
that
just-
3 is good.
Let's keep it, okay, so let's
You
narrow
can
it
flip
down
a
this
coin,
way.
Molly. You want to flip a
Well,
coin?
there are all these other very large-scale projects that we need to spread ourselves onto.
So of sort of like the 5 things, really 4.
So facilities, superintendent search, contract negotiations, measurements that matter. What am I missing on my list?
Oh, it's
Advocacy.
the advocacy.
Advocacy.
So of those 5 things, Molly, which are your 2 favorites?
Facilities and measurements that matter.
Dan, Jody?
I gotta write my list.
All right, that's the thing. You gotta have them all down.
I would not, so,
Do you want our top 2? Is that what you want? What-
I'm just curious what your top 2 are.
advocacy would be near and dear to my heart.
My 3? I can give you 3. Go ahead, Dan. Didn't mean to cut you off.
If it's superintendent search or facilities, what would you rather do?
Oh,
Facilities search and the union.
so, I've put a great deal of thought into that. And, I do not think that I'm a person that should be, until we decide on a model for negotiations, I don't feel that I can make that decision. What my role in that would best be.
That's fair.
Yeah, I look at you and it's like you have all this expertise with the stuff that you've done in Chardon and what you know. And then you also have this, is conflict the right word? Conflict's not the right word.
It's not, I don't think it's a conflict at all. I would not be conflicted, I would have no trouble whatsoever, sitting on whichever side of the round table I sit on.
Sir Dan.
But, I see a superintendent search as so integrally related to advocacy, for instance. I see so many of these things intertwined.
Right. And I think the superintendent search, you're all gonna
We're all involved.
Yeah.
be in that one, so maybe take that one off, maybe as a, because I think you're,
Well, I'm just trying to narrow it down.
oh, I know what you're trying to do,
So-
yeah, I know what you're
Is
trying to
it-
do, but,
Okay, so, I mean, you want to do the facilities. Molly, you feel strongly about the facilities? Yes or no?
Yes, I do.
Anybody got a
And
quarter?
you feel strongly? Okay. This is,
But I've been known to back down in the past.
okay, when is the first meeting?
we haven't set a date yet. Because, we had to shift our schedule, because we wasn't sure which board members, and we were thinking that maybe some meetings would be during the day or after school, so it depends on what board members are chosen when we're gonna have our meetings. So
So
that's
we-
gonna dictate.
Yeah, these meetings almost need to take place, I would think, during work hours or late in the day.
Correct.
I mean, we have,
Just tell us what board members and we adjust our schedules. We're flexible. So we don't want that to be the holdup.
Sounds like, we also don't have Beverly here. Is this something we really must decide tonight, or can we table this? We're meeting in a week. Would we be making a better decision, a more informed decision, after sleeping on it a little bit?
Maybe we should all give you our top 2 or 3.
what I would like you guys to do is the 5 things that are on the table, to rank them.
Okay.
And if
Okay.
there's ties and things that are close, let me know.
You know,
I will engage Beverly on this.
Dan, you can put a Google spreadsheet together
I am.
like you did.
I can imagine how exciting this conversation has been for our audience.
Making a decision by a coin toss.
Right.
Okay, that's gonna
Okay,
get,
thank
that's,
you.
so this will help us better get a sense of also where Beverly's at.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and just so you know, when I'm looking at these things, I'm just going to try to lead all these various groups. So I will take myself out of the equation, but I will be part of the meetings, obviously.
Right.
So I just want to make sure that we've got some leads on this.
Yeah.
Sure.
All right.
So,
So somebody's going to create a Google Doc, Dan, and we're
Dan's the
all going to
expert
fill
at
it out. And
Google Docs,
we better have it filled out before we come to the next meeting.
Christine's
Yeah.
meeting, right?
so.
Is that correct? Just want
For
to make sure I'm
those-
clear on what we're
Okay,
supposed to
for
do.
those interested
Yes.
audience members, now that we've had our Google Docs training, since we're part of Google Classroom, there are some pretty awesome
Very good
open
stuff.
houses that we're having. And we decided that through one email, I think we all should go to these. And it's like, yes, we should all go to these because we are all expressing interest. So there's a form where we're gonna try
Yes.
to make sure that we've got board members at all these at all these open houses, so. There we have it. So we have board committee reports.
I will give a brief update of the two that I'm proud to be involved in, and those are the Bond Accountability Commission. We have our next meeting, actually, it's
Day after
day
tomorrow.
after tomorrow. I'm not going to be able to attend, unfortunately, because it's parent conference night for me. But there is a tour, the committee is touring Monticello. And, you know, as I mentioned a minute ago, anybody who thinks that that what's happening at our middle schools is just superficial, I double dog dare you to look in the windows, because it is genuinely impressive, and the scale is much more than I think most people are expecting. And it's very, very exciting. And, you know, when you start digging into walls in 100-year-old buildings, you periodically find things you weren't expecting. But it's an exciting time. And our middle school students are going to return to buildings that are not just more fresh, but they are better places to learn. We are adding 2 science classrooms, bringing them back online at Monticello. We are doing some much-needed repairs at Roxborough. There's a project going on with the cafeteria and the kitchen, really, at Monticello that serves Monticello and a number of the elementary schools. It is an exciting time. I am very much looking forward to these buildings being open and welcoming in our middle school kids, who I think are going to be extremely happy with what they find. That meeting is tomorrow. And then the Heights Coalition for Public Education also is a fantastic community organization that's always open. If people are interested, I can tell you, you can put a pin in your calendar. On November 15th, the Heights Coalition will be hosting an event that's sort of loosely titled, "Well, the midterms are over, now what?" For public ed. And so we're going to be talking about what's this new political landscape going to look like, and how can our community most effectively advocate for public education in that brave new world that we will be entering into.
The Monticello,
Yes,
that's tomorrow night?
that's tomorrow.
Yeah, it's
Thank you,
tomorrow,
yes.
tomorrow at
So is the meeting
4.
4 o'clock is the
4 o'clock.
It's at 4 o'clock, the
At
walkthrough?
Monticello.
Yeah, so we're walking through the building at 4 o'clock, and then we're
Closed-toed shoes
meeting
and
afterwards
long pants.
in the, at 5 o'clock, we're
How long
meeting.
will it go?
The meeting's right after that walk.
But-
Approximately 5.
But here?
No, the meeting will happen over there in the
Oh,
trailer,
all right,
because we'll be there already.
makes sense.
Okay.
Photos will be taken for the website.
Yes.
I was
Closed-toed
gonna be there without
shoes.
Photos. I get to see Monticello,
Yeah.
Roxborough when I walk by every day.
Yes.
And the emptiness inside there. Wow, it's,
And I
Okay.
cannot attend that. I would love to see Monticello, but it is middle school parent-teacher conference night,
Yes.
so I have to be a mom tomorrow afternoon.
We'll Photoshop you in the photo.
The stick with my face on it.
look, you guys aren't enough pictures doing board stuff, so, I mean, you don't need to resort to that.
All right.
Any other board committee reports?
Sure, I can, well, Dr. Dixon already mentioned the PTA council meeting, which happened, first one of the year. I think that was very successful. We had representation from every building unit. There's a lot of emphasis placed on, basically getting our ducks in a row. So rewriting or updating, each PTA's, what's the word I'm looking for? Not rules, guidelines. Bylaws, thank you. And making sure that we're in compliance with the IRS and the state general attorney's office, things like that, which are really tedious but important. And then, as you stated earlier, increasing membership and making sure that PTAs are providing what each building needs to supplement the work of the district. The Career and Technical Education Advocacy Group met last week, I think it was, and we had a really good meeting. Mr. Hopkins is working on putting in place systems for coordinating 5 school districts and making sure that everything is working, and that's very difficult and meticulous work. He also told us that we're going to have a fabulous 5-district career fair on November the 15th? Yes.
Oh, I already booked it.
Thursday, you booked, right. So, Thursday, the 15th of November, students from all 5 districts will come to the Career Tech Ed Fair at the high school, and then parents will be invited to come back in the evening so that they can get a better understanding of what each one of these programs really is and whether it's appropriate for their kid or not. So I'm excited about that because it's always a good time to see the students talk about their programs and what they're doing, because they are the best sellers of the career tech programs.
Is this the one where we do the judging?
Yes, we need judges. But you'll have to talk to Mr. Hopkins about the details because I don't remember. And then a plug for my friends over at Auto Tech, Jeff Porter, and one of his students volunteered to fix something for the sports teams. And so I brought a broken part over, and they're all these kids are like, okay, well, we can weld it, and then we can grind it, and then we can blah, blah, blah. I was like, yes, just let me know when I come back to pick it up. And it was just this lovely moment of synergy between different aspects of our high school and what the kids care about. So I was very excited about that.
And the Sunday, cover of the Sunday business page had one of our students.
Yes.
Oh, Desmond. Great kid. He graduated a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, I guess it was.
Went through the robotics program.
And he
And he's
is
working
now
as an apprentice.
working at Talon Metal Stamping Industries. I think he's technically an apprentice, but he's terrific, and he's learning lots of things, and he's reflecting very well on his training because they love him, and it's really an example of how local industries want students who've been prepared to come and meet their needs, and he's an example of somebody who is, has the right background and the ability to learn very quickly on the job, and they're putting him to good use. So.
Unfinished business?
Not unfinished business, but my board committee is board self-evaluation, and I will be working on putting together a board evaluation for all of us to consider. One of the things that we had talked about when this board formed in one of our first or second meetings was we would like to do a self-evaluation of ourselves, so that's something I'm working on. And then, this is not my committee, but I need to ask Dan, do we have a plan for homecoming parade?
We will be marching.
I know
Well,
you
we-
signed us up, so.
We have a
Right, what are we
banner.
wearing? Let's get to the matter.
We
important things here.
each kicked in private funds to purchase a banner, so now we have to use the banner. Have to carry the banner. And so
Parade banner.
it is the parade banner. And yes, so we will be marching in said homecoming parade. Yeah, that's all the information I have about that.
What are we wearing, Dan?
I think we should go with red, gold, I don't care.
So if I Photoshop you in on the Mountain tour, would you Photoshop me in?
In the
on
parade picture.
Very good. Wish I could attend.
And then that Saturday is when they have a big open house at the high school.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, the day
So-
after homecoming, so it's gonna be a big event.
Yes.
Yes, and speaking of which, for the community in the room and at home, these community open houses are something that we have not done. If ever, it's been a very long time, and I hope that everyone in the community, whether or not you have kids in the schools, will come and visit the schools that your taxes are paying for. I am very excited about these events. I know that we all are. And I hope that people will come and see what these kids are doing in these buildings, see the learning that's happening, see the artifacts of the education that these children are producing every day. I'm confident that you will feel that this is money and time well spent. And meet a board member.
Meet a board member and see our facilities.
Yes.
Yes, it's good.
How
Or
about see
two
the
board members. I
facilities
think
and
we've got
possibly see a
coverage
board
now.
member?
You're going to see a board member.
Yeah,
We're
they'll
gonna be
see
there.
board members, we'll be there. Okay, we're gonna move on to unfinished business. New business?
I have two little pieces of new business. There are two school districts in Ohio, the Dayton Public Schools and the Logan Hocking School District in southern Ohio. And these districts have come together, and they are asking a Franklin County court to turn the ECOT case over to them, because they feel that Mike DeWine and John Husted, because of their decades-long connection with charter schools and ECOT in particular, that these gentlemen cannot separate themselves from their past with ECOT. And I am just thrilled with this effort. Advocacy on behalf of those dollars, those taxpayer dollars that have been, as I call it, hijacked from Ohio's taxpayers. And so they are asking the Franklin County Court to remove this case from the oversight of Mike DeWine in his capacity as Secretary of State, John Husted in his capacity as Secretary of State, and Mike DeWine as the state's attorney. So I've shared an article or two with my colleagues on the board in the hopes that we might lean in a little bit on this. My initial question was, do we want to have our attorney write some sort of amicus brief on behalf of public schools in Ohio, encouraging the court to really consider removing the state officially, as it is, and putting it in the hands of some group of school districts who have been the aggrieved party. And so I put this to the board. I think that there is an amicus brief possibility. I think it would be really interesting to see if there's room for us to join in the legal proceedings. So I put it out for discussion among my colleagues.
Well,
Yes.
my level of interest in this would be, what about the kids?
Right.
I'm not going to try to get political here, but you can't not get political here. These elected officials completely forgot about the kids that are being affected. These are thousands of kids that fell through the cracks.
Yep.
Nobody knows where they are. They didn't go to school. They didn't show up any place. They fell through the cracks. Someone was profiting on that, and they knew this was happening, and they did nothing about it. It's highly unlikely we're ever going to see any of the money back.
Correct.
But we have to make sure that no other kid is going to fall through the cracks again. And it's hard to take on the entire charter school industry. I mean, I just wish it was an even playing field. And I wish the legislation wasn't skewed in their favor and intentionally against us. You have that little brochure, Jody, about how we're the self-evaluation
Self-evaluation.
guide for board members. Well, frankly, if we were a school district and if we were in the 80th percentile of what we do, we'd be getting an F.
But you said it's a stacked deck, and and the size, but that's what they said about big tobacco. Until there was that one case, and a bunch of states' attorneys general said, yeah, you know what, I'll throw a little bit of money at that. And so maybe it's time for us to be a little bit more bold and to say, maybe this is the day. And we're not going to change what ECOT did, but maybe we can make the stakes a little bit higher for the next folks who want to come in and steal educational opportunity from our kids.
I have a couple of things to say, but you guys haven't
I
checked in on
have
it
just a
yet.
couple of boring questions. Do we knew that there were, 61 children in our district who were affected by ECOT closing? Am I remembering the right number?
It sounds about right.
I think that's right.
That was about the order of magnitude. I wonder how much money that represented in terms of what the district lost to ECOT.
There was some email where that was presented to us at one point. I mean, we should
Go back and
we should
refresh
go
it.
back and look
It's
at
about
it.
$6,000 a kid plus change.
So
Per
six
year.
sixes, yeah, right. So I suspect it's significant enough that, the taxpayers have the right to be irate about it. There's also a little piece of me that goes back to those children. It's like those children were signed up at ECOT by their parents because the parents thought that was the right thing for my child at the time, right? We're all trying to navigate what's right for our children, and it changes from year to year. So, why did those parents choose ECOT? What do we have to offer to help them and their children now that that has all fallen apart? I want to make sure that those children get the education they didn't get, and I don't know how to make sure that happens. Where are those kids now? Some of them have come back to CHUH, but we don't know where most of them are, do we?
Many of their records are
Yeah,
gone.
we have
Right,
that. I just
right.
don't know where, we have that information, because we had to
Yes.
send that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Enos.
yeah, we have to send that in. So I can get it and refresh it and put it in here.
So, if we become party to this lawsuit, then we are representing the interests of those students, really. That's our responsibility.
The students, our
And
taxpayers.
the parents and the taxpayers. There's sort of an interesting multiple perspectives that we need to keep in mind simultaneously.
You pointed out that, without trying to draw political lines, the one district is highly conservative.
Absolutely. Hocking County is, it's as red as you get.
We're not so red up here in this part.
We're not so red. We could bring a little purple.
I would want to work with our partners across the political aisle.
Absolutely.
On trying
Yes,
to find
yes, yes. This
solutions
is
to
about,
Because that's the only way stuff gets done.
you know what, this is about kids who should never involve in the political battle, but it's about green, ultimately.
Can we do this? I mean, I think this is real foreign territory to all of us. We have a magnitude of lawyers that we use for all different purposes. Can you guys pick one that you think would make the most sense to reach out to their counsel that's doing this and just see if there's a place for us in any of this? How can we help? And what would that entail? And this doesn't cost us a thing. It gives us a lot more information, learn a little bit more about. I mean, this is pretty non-traditional for a school district that has to fight this way. But someone's got to fight back.
Yeah.
But let's get some information. So, maybe in one of our next board meetings, if you can just come back with us on that, that'd be good. Is this a good
Yeah.
solution?
Yeah. Yep.
For everybody?
Yes.
You said 2 items.
2 items. We got news this week that through the passage of House Bill 318, the Heights schools will receive more than $29,000 in money that is related to school violence, and that this will go into mental health services, et cetera. And this is a fantastic surprise to us, which we were informed about this week, and I was thrilled to get it. But there's a little bit of a backstory that I kind of want to share about House Bill 318, and this comes from my world in Chardon. The 2 men who proposed and pursued this being added into House Bill 318 are 2 incredible men. One of them's name is Tim Armelli. Another one is Coach Frank Hall. And if the name Frank Hall sounds familiar, it's because Coach Hall is the hero who chased a shooter out of Chardon High School. And so they have formed the Coach Hall Foundation. And it is through the Coach Hall Foundation that these monies were added into House Bill 318. So I just want to, share that and say a public thank you from our school district, our students, to Tim Armelli and Coach Hall, and every opportunity that I have to remind the world of the 3 boys who we lost on that day. I will always do that. We lost a young man named Demetrius Hewlin, who was a wonderful kid. He had a voice that was far too low for his body. And you just loved hearing that boy speak. We lost a kid named Russell King, who was the classic Geauga County white t-shirt, faded blue jeans, big buckle on his belt, and work boots. And we lost a boy named Danny Parmiter, who was just always had a smile on his face as his default position, always. He was a wonderful young man. So I celebrate their memory. I also want to point out and say a big thank you to our House Rep, Janine Boyd, who stepped up as a co-sponsor of this initiative. So thank you, Representative Boyd. And I will also point out, this is my final piece, I promise. When you have a Secretary of Education who is pursuing the use of Title IV money to arm teachers, I will point out that Coach Frank Hall received deputy sheriff training. He is a trained deputy sheriff. He was not serving in that role on that day. He was not armed on that day. He insists that had he been armed, it would have been of absolutely no help to him because he would never have had a clean shot. Because guess what? The halls were full of kids. So Frank Hall on that morning chased a shooter out of a building. did not need to be armed. Handgun, a sidearm would not have helped in the situation. So Secretary DeVos should focus more on keeping Title IV money where it is and helping to solve the reasons that lead people into these acts instead of pretending to solve them once they appear. Thank you.
Constructive words, thanks. Correspondence and announcements. Heard a lot of things sort of that get embedded in the meeting. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I motion we adjourn.
Second?
Call the roll.
Mr. Posh?
Yes.
Mr. Hines? Ms.
Yes.
Serini?
Yes.
Ms. Lewis?
Yes.